Okay, so today I wanted to start the series on how to have a good day in uncertain times by focusing on the situation where we're surrounded by a lot of worries and a lot of challenges, and it's starting to go round and round and round in our heads and filling our heads to the point where it feels hard to step away from that place of stress and worry. And I'd like to talk about what we can do about that and how we can restore a bit more of a balanced perspective. And this is actually one of my favorite techniques that I'm going to talk about today, because it's both simple and also quite deep. And it's I always love simplicity. I like things that we can use very, very easily in the heat of the moment. And some of you will know the science behind it, but not necessarily how that would apply in situations like the ones we're facing today. And some of you might know the practice, but you might not know the science behind it, and it might help encourage you to use it more often, or encourage others to use it more often. So hopefully helpful to put the science and the practice together. So I'm going to talk to you about negative spirals and how the science of that works to start off with. Right? What is the science of a negative spiral? We're all familiar with that feeling of negative thought after negative thought, but what's actually happening when that's going on? And it turns out that this is to do with the way that our brain allocates our conscious attention. Our conscious attention. Now, what is that? That is the consciousness that we bring right now to everything that's around us, to the way that we feel, to the things that surround us right now. And it's more limited than many of us think, many of us are aware of. Because by definition, we're only aware of what we're conscious of. We're not aware of everything else. Our conscious attention, you might know, is limited, though, if you've ever had a situation like, I don't know, someone says something to you and you don't hear it somehow, and they say to you, hey, are you listening? Or you have a situation where you put your glasses or your keys down somewhere and somehow you didn't notice where you put them down, and so you can't remember now. And why? Because your attention was elsewhere. And this happened to me quite recently in a different way, downstairs in the living room. I remember seeing this crack in the window, quite a big crack in one of the panes in the window. And I said to my husband, oh my goodness, did a bird just fly into the window? That's not looking too good. And he said, Caroline, that crack has been there since 2010. I just hadn't seen it. I'd looked through the window hundreds of times, I mean, perhaps even thousands of times. And for some reason, even though I'd looked at the window, I hadn't seen the crack, the big crack that was right there. So what's going on? How is it possible that we can be in a situation where we can look without seeing and listen without hearing? And that's because our brain only has capacity for selective attention. It's that limited selective attention that we all have. And the way it works is that however smart you are, and I know many of you are extremely smart. What am I saying? All of you are extremely smart. However smart you are, it doesn't matter. We all have this situation where our brain can process a certain amount of information, and it's maybe 50 bits at any given time. There are lots of different pieces of research on this. But meanwhile, the world around us is infinitely complex, and there are trillions of pieces of information around us at any given time. And if you just look at the palm of your hand and you look at the lines across it and the way that the light falls in every piece of your hand, and perhaps the way that each finger feels and knuckles, but the temperature of each knuckle, each of these things is a piece of information, is a bit of information. So if you expand that out to the whole world, or even just the room around you, it's already too much for you to be focusing on, as well as listening to me. So limited conscious attention. And the way it works is that so that we don't get overloaded like a computer with all of its keys being pressed at once, we have a filter. Subconsciously, our brain's filtering out anything that doesn't seem important enough for our small amount of conscious attention to actually focus on. And that's great, because it means that you can focus and you can not be distracted when you're focusing on a task. Yay. But then turns out that sometimes we miss things that we don't want to miss. And That's because our brain follows a really simple rule in determining what we should actually notice, what we should actually consciously notice. And it's broadly this. It turns out that we tend to notice things that are top of mind for us. And the behavioral scientists among you will know that this is actually an umbrella way of thinking about a lot of different biases. Confirmation bias, where you see what matches the expectations that are top of mind. Intentional blindness, where you only see what is aligned with a goal that you have. You might know of salience bias or recency bias, all of which are about, again, our ability to focus attention on what seems very real and present and right now top of mind, and then miss the rest. And some of you will know why that still is on the picture there. It's a still from one of the famous experiments in this field of selective attention. And you may know that this was a couple of psychologists who demonstrated that it was entirely possible to have people watch a video of kids throwing around a couple of basketballs in a hallway, show the video to a group of people, and have them completely miss the fact that in the middle of the video, a person, a woman, as it turns out, in a gorilla suit, comes on in the middle of the frame, stands, slowly turns to the camera, looks at the camera, beats her chest, and then walks off. And it's entirely possible for us to miss something as large and interesting as that. And hands up, you know, when I first saw that video, I did miss the gorilla. I was one of the people that missed the gorilla. And I've shown this video, which you can't use now because everybody knows the trick. But when I showed it to groups of clients, the same thing would happen. About half the people would miss it. And then many of the rest, if I asked them, did you see anything weird in the video, would be saying, I don't know, maybe. But the point is, we're able to miss large and interesting things, even if they're not something that we'd choose to miss, just because it wasn't top of mind for us. In this case, because we were focusing on the goal of counting the number of passes between the kids in the video. Now, you might know this. You might be less familiar with the fact that the effect is quite subtle. It's not just that we miss big objects, it's also that we actually have whatever's top of mind for us in terms of our mood or our attitude shape and even twist what we perceive. And this starts to matter quite a lot in our current context, because it turns out that it really can make a big difference to how you see things that could be viewed in multiple different ways. There's another study that I like because I can imagine myself being in it, which is that a group of psychologists got volunteers to sign up. They asked them to take a test. They put a proportion of the people in a randomly bad mood by telling them that they'd failed this very easy test. They hadn't. And then that made them feel a little irritated, as you can imagine, to be told you failed a test that you clearly have not failed. And then the researchers gave everybody a neutral description of an individual to read, and they had to decide how likable this person was. And for people who hadn't been told they'd failed, they thought this person was perhaps a bit bland, but perfectly likable. For those who were in a slightly bad mood because they'd been told that they failed the test, they then perceived this person as being less likable. And that's where we want to jump off, because if our mood, if what we've just been exposed to in terms of an experience or in terms of even just information can shape what we perceive and make us miss some of the better things that are going on, well, that starts to matter quite a lot. Because the truth is that we only perceive part of reality at any given time, and our state of mind now is going to quite strongly determine what we notice next. And you think about how this plays out right now. Imagine that you're worried. Maybe you're trying to plan for your kids' schooling. You're trying to be a good citizen and read the news. The news is worrying. Maybe you read a challenging news story. Our attention is often drawn to negative things. It's a sort of defensive, evolutionary response to keeping ourselves safe. So you're reading all of this bad news, you're worrying, you're trying to think things through. What happens is that it's easy to get into an unconscious negative spiral, because your starting point is that you're worrying. And so what do you see? Your attention is drawn to other negative information, and then other negative information after that, and after that, because that's what's top of mind. That's how your perceptual filters are working. So first of all, this helps us understand, well, how does this happen? So, now we understand actually it's quite normal for this kind of cycle to happen. But the good news is that we can turn the cycle the other way around too, because it works the same way with positive news. Now, you can't just magic up positive news necessarily, but you can make a very deliberate decision to focus on 1, 2, 3 good things, small things, concrete things right now, to say, okay, I'm going to force my attention towards those good things, however small they are, and I'm going to put them top of my mind. And that is going to be enough to drive my attention in a more positive direction. And then after that, to see more good things after that. I mean, none of this is saying that the bad things aren't out there, to be clear. I'm definitely not saying that. But I am saying that that helps to restore a bit of balance, knowing that it's very easy for us to end up unintentionally filtering out some of the more positive stuff that might be going on. Maybe because we've just read a challenging email, we go into a meeting, we miss a conversation, a comment by someone that might suggest there's a chance for a collaborative outcome. We just don't hear it because our mind is on the email and is in the state of mind that we're filtering out the better stuff. Or maybe even reading that email, you were in a bad mood before that, and you missed perhaps that there was an apology halfway down the email. Because you were in a bad mood, your eyes just skipped over it. Because remember, we can miss quite a lot by our perceptual filters being set in one direction or another. And that actually happened to me 2 days ago. I read someone's email. I was in a state of high dudgeon, as we say in my home country. And I felt nervous and worried, and I missed a whole ton of positive stuff that was in that email because my mind just filtered them out. And how do I do this in practice from day to day? Well, when I notice that I'm feeling a little bit stressed or a bit uptight or feeling a little antsy, I do make myself do a little 1-minute attention exercise. I mean, frankly, you could even do it in 10 seconds, but let's say 1 minute. And I say, okay, what are some good things to notice? Right, so there's a new leaf on the plant that is on my desk, which I thought wasn't doing too well, but it seems to be doing all right. That is very nice. I got an email this morning from a lovely friend and mentee that I haven't heard from in a couple of years, and it really lifted my spirits. And it's just the sheer fact of putting those things top of mind make it easier then for me to see other good things. Now, you'll recognize this, I'm sure, as basically a gratitude exercise. The thing is, the immediate boost is definitely a gratitude boost. We know that gratitude helps to boost our sense of well-being. But the bigger effect is that it resets our filters so that after that, we see more positive things after that, and then after that. And that's where I think the magic of this really starts to play out in shifting the way that we feel from day to day. And this is the sort of thing that we can do not only for ourselves, you might be good at this already, but also to think about how we can do it with and for others, people that we love, people that we work with, people we care about. For example, on screen, I've got a couple of examples of questions I love. If I'm working on a difficult task, either with myself or with other people, you don't want to necessarily be sort of break the flow of the conversation and say, okay, what specific good things can we stop and appreciate right now? But you can say something quite natural about, okay, well, what's gone well so far? Or what's gone well since we last spoke? And why is that? That feels very natural, feels very professional. But it helps to draw everybody's attention towards some of the better things, which allows you to go into thinking about the challenging stuff with a clearer head and less stress. You make better choices when you're less stressed. Or when something goes wrong, now it's quite hard to say to yourself, okay, I must look for something good right now. I think that's actually a little unrealistic, and I like realistic optimism. But I do think even when something has gone wrong, what you can say to yourself, or with the group that you're with, you can say, okay, well, what will I be glad I've learned from this? Or what will we be glad that we've learned from this? That works really nicely. And again, it feels very professional. It doesn't feel like you're making a big psychological intervention. And then the other thing I would say is, and this is probably the way that I use this most, is actually at the end of each day to sit and do a little bit of a review of what were the good things that happened during the day. And this is a little routine that I have with my husband. We sit on the couch at the end of the day and we say, okay, what were the good things that happened today? And we aim for 3. And often once we've got to 3, then we start to talk about other things that we might have actually completely forgotten about. And I will say that a few months ago, through the pandemic, you know, we, like many of you, had a situation where, you know, we're not leaving the house, we're not seeing people, we're not, you know, living our fullest life in normal situation. And so we kind of fell out of the habit of actually using that technique, which had always been part of our marriage and part of our relationship. We stopped doing it. And I will say that even within a week, certainly within 2 weeks, I started to notice that it was really striking that our mood and our motivation was drifting. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, we've stopped doing the thing. We've stopped doing the end of day review where we sit and we talk about what the good things were, even if we have to force ourselves a little bit. And we kind of smile because we're laughing at the fact that we're having to force ourselves a little bit. And so we reinstituted it very, very deliberately and said, okay, we're going to do it again. We're going to start again. We're going to start the good thing review at the end of the day. And it made a tremendous difference. It was almost amusing to see how quickly it made a difference to us. So I'm going to pause there. So here is a little pause for you to tell me what you think. Tell me what resonates with you. What have you seen in this? What have you seen work for you? Are there times when you've noticed yourself getting into a negative spiral? Are there times when you've managed to turn it around? I am having a look at all of your comments now. This is the magic of this new format, the live. I remember also a colleague, actually, I mean, she was a client at the time, who had the experience of using this attentional redirect with her own colleagues who were going through a really difficult time. And she noticed that they were getting stressed and not thinking as clearly. And she was interested in how quickly she managed to reset the team's focus and creativity by doing the second of those things that's on screen and saying, okay, what's gone well so far and why is that? And she's very fond of saying, look, actually the why really matters because it makes it clear that you're kind of doing this for serious reasons and you're looking to learn from the experience. But it's a way of making sure that you have the team's focus not just on the challenges, which are often part of what's going on, not all of what's going on. Let's have a look at see what some of your comments. Oh, end of day review is great, Hazel says. I'm going to pull out some comments and put them on screen. Hi, Hazel. Agree the end of day review is great. Too easy right now to focus on concerns and challenges of the day. Absolutely, absolutely. All too easy to get into negative spiral and lockdown. Absolutely right. So true, so true. Let's have a look. What does Robert say? Oh yeah, what is the best thing about the change that is being proposed or has already been decided? I love that. You know, you might have an idea in front of you, and it's so easy quickly to go to the negatives of why something won't work, especially right now when everything's so hard. But with your colleagues or even just in your own head to say, okay, don't let me go straight to the negative. What is the best thing about the change that's being proposed? Let's have a look. What else have we got here? I've used this deliberately during the pandemic. What do I appreciate now in this new situation that I would never have experienced without it? Like spending more time in my family, not being so stressed out all the time. Absolutely, absolutely. And Margaret, I've been on a challenging project. Spending time about what I will learn as I become more familiar with my role keeps me focused during the challenging pieces. Absolutely. Because our brain is nothing if not focused. I mean, that's the thing. We've only got this little amount of information that we can process. So where do we choose to put that focus? Where do we choose to put that attention? I mean, in a way, the reason I say it's simple but deep it's the most profound thing that we have as human beings. I mean, our attention is the currency of our lives. And so where we choose to put it is definitely one of the things that we have most control over. It's wonderful. Lots of new comments coming in. I love this. This is wonderful. If I don't get to all of your comments in the next few minutes, I will come back and I will write comments to you later. This is wonderful. Better days this week because we've been moving office. Hi, Anthony. That's great. So positive spiral, seeing more people to talk to. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, the challenge is that many of us are still very, very isolated. You know, I mentioned that I'm in London. We're still in full lockdown. And so we're not seeing a lot of people. So making an effort to draw your own attention to, like I said this morning, just really slowing down and for a moment saying to yourself, that is really lovely that I heard from my mentee. That's really fantastic. And just taking a moment to draw your attention to that makes it more likely that you're going to have a more balanced perspective to whatever you do next. That's fantastic. All right, well, we're getting towards the end. Sometimes conversations trigger a negative spiral. What to do about them? Totally understand that. I mean, one of the biggest effects on us is, of course, the people around us and, you know, how we interact with them and how it makes us feel. I think, you know, the thing to do is simply to take a moment to ground yourself, take a breath and say, okay, in this case, what it might be is, I know this person is perhaps not being ideal right now, but what is it I appreciate about them? Is there anything at all that I can appreciate about them? Maybe, you know, quite often when we have difficult conversations, it's because, you know, you're seeing some humanity in someone that's a little uneven, or maybe you're seeing the effects of someone sort of trying so hard and working hard and being tired. There's always something that you can appreciate. And then if you can draw your attention to that, then you can have a more balanced perspective about what to do next in the conversation. Absolutely wonderful comments here. I love these examples. Starting your day. So we talked about ending the day, but starting the day by setting an intention to look out for something that might amaze you. I love that, David. That's great. So I'm going to wrap it up, even though, gosh, I would love to comment on everything that is coming through. I hope you're able to see those too. They're not lost though, because as you may know, we are recording this and you will be able to access the recording at any time. If you haven't already, then what I would say is go to carolinewebb.co/live and sign up there. You won't be spammed. You will get the recording, book excerpt, and one-page summary by signing up there. And book excerpt, what I mean by that is actually the pages in the book that explain the science behind this, in case you haven't read the book. And then a one-page summary, that will be the yellow page of nice questions that you can try out if this is all newer to you. So carolinewebb.co/live. And one thing I've noticed in the last few days is that when people sign up and then they get the emails reminding them about sessions, I get to see those emails if you reply. So if you reply and have some stories to share about how you're managing uncertainty, and you think, oh, I'd like to chime in and share that with Caroline, maybe she can use it, or maybe she can learn from it, or maybe I have a question, just reply to the email that you get from me and I will see it. And I will be very grateful to hear from you about everything that you're doing. So carolinewebb.co/live. Wonderful to see you all. Really quite moving to know that you're all out there. Next week, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be talking about how we can ground ourselves in certainty as a way of coping better with the uncertainty and the chaos that's around us. So thank you again. Thank you. And I am wishing you all many good days in the weeks ahead.